Thank you.
No.
All right.
I've never watched this kind of
Okay, I don't think that part's
Okay,
done.
thank you all for coming tonight. This is a gathering of true believers compared to some other gatherings. If we haven't met, I'm Frank Bowles. I'm the Vice President of the
I
Historical
know, but what I'm
Society.
saying is a separate
And the reason I'm
conversation.
here is because Angie Morflin, our president, not only is in Florida, we can all feel for her, sadly this week she's on a cruise. You know, 24-hour buffet, those little drinks with the, oh yeah, it's tough for Angie, but we all feel for her, and we'll send her a get well card or something. Okay, Angie cannot be here, so I'm doing the introduction. Tanya Prochnow is our speaker. She's going to be talking about the Michigan Room here at the Mackinaw Area Public Library. She's the library director. And before she gets up here, let me just say that I've been doing a lot of research. You have a wonderful facility there. It is a marvelous, marvelous local history collection, which she's going to tell you all about. Tanya?
Okay.
You just want to sit down after that introduction.
So I was supposed to introduce myself. So I will tell you, I started here at the library in 1992. It was my college summer job. And so my job, I didn't even get to work on patrons. I didn't get to help patrons. I got to alphabetize card catalog, alphabetize the checkout cards, and shelf books. And that's all I got to do that summer. And then I came back. They had me come back the next year with a full-time position. And I graduated to typing out interlibrary loans because that was when everything was typed and sent and faxed. And then after that, I actually was able to help patrons. And then they needed someone at one of the branches, so I started learning to do the branches. And then I worked at the Pellston branch for, I'm not sure how many years. I was here for about 6 or 7 years. I'm not even sure. It was in between there sometime. And then I left. I came back in 2013 and I worked with the kids. And then in 2020, I became the director. So during that time, the Michigan Room was constructed the first year that I was here in 1992. I was nowhere near it. Judy did not let anyone in her domain. And so I knew nothing about the Michigan Room. And then when I came back, I didn't have anything to do with the Michigan Room. And so it wasn't until 2020 that I started digging around the Michigan Room. So I still find stuff that I don't know. I'll dig around and find interesting stuff. So I have handled all the books. I've done an inventory over there. I've moved everything, so I've touched everything. But there's still stuff that I'm just going to give you a brief idea what's over there. Basically, it was dedicated in 1994. I'm not sure why there was the gap in building it and dedication, but that's when it was dedicated. So what I'm going to read you, I'm going to start by reading you what Judy wrote and read at the opening when it was at the dedication. And this is I thought it was very good. It says, "Today marks the realization of a plan envisioned decades ago. For years, Mackinaw City residents have wished for a place to preserve and display our area's unique history. Its completion only last year came about because of this long-held vision and the hard work of many people. Thank you to Charlotte McCormick and the McCormick Foundation, Mackinaw City Booster Club members, the Lions Club members, and the Mackinaw businesses such as the Fort Fudge Shop, Darrow's Restaurant, Williams Donut and Pastry Shop, and many others." It wasn't pastry, it was pasty. And thanks to all the people who volunteered to our seemingly endless rummage, book, and bake sales. We're here today celebrating the opening of the Michigan History Room because of their dedication. The term Michigan History Room sounds a little dry to describe what we have here. It's true that in this room we have thousands of books about our state and by Michigan authors. And we have reels of microfilm, which we still have, recording the state census records, hundreds of photographs detailing the area's history, and numerous rare documents. But that doesn't really do justice to the contents. More than that, this room is a repository for memories, stories and pictures of people who traveled through this region and over the past centuries. Tales of the Native Americans who first inhabited these woodlands, French voyagers seeking their fortunes, and missionaries saving souls, each single-minded in their quest, rough and tumble shanty boys who logged these forests, hopeful pioneer families trying to farm the rocky soil, fishermen, lighthouse keepers, ferry boat captains, their stories are all here. For more than 3 centuries, the Straits have played a significant part of our state's history. It was a strategic spot for soldiers, shippers, traders, and travelers of all nationalities, and each group left their imprint. Each told their stories in volumes collected here. But we've also saved those things that describe the comings and goings of ordinary folk. Boxes of antique photographs, township records, newspaper clippings, and baptismal, wedding, and funeral records recall the lives of those who came before us. Each year we have visitors from many states who come to look up their family tree or research our area's unusual history. It's as exciting for them as it is for us when they discover a connection to our region. And each year, people come in with contributions to the collection, photographs from their family, artifacts dug up from the early sawmill, or books by a local author. They bring them here because they know this is a place where our history is treasured. We hope today you will take the time to explore our Michigan History Room. Enjoy the displays. Many were contributed by area residents. Jerry Pryor carved our state bird. Nicole Perry and Dorothy Kruger sewed patchwork quilts on exhibit. I'm not sure where they went, but they were here. Browse through the shelves. You'll find books by local authors, histories of nearby villages, and personal recollections of years past. We invite you to treasure our history. Who knows, maybe you'll add some of your own memories to this room. So that was the opening of the Michigan Room. I thought it fit very well because what I love the most about it is the stories. So when it says the history of the Michigan Room, I'm not telling you how it came about. I'm telling you what's in it. So these are the things that I found over the past few years and the things that I think are most interesting. There's tons more. So the John Marsh postcard collection. John Marsh was an antique collector from Marshall, and his mother was Marguerite Daisy Marsh. And these were collected from 1980 to 2012. And they're all antique ones, but he collected them all. There are 1,348 total. So they are done up in photo albums that are by topic. And so these are just some of them, some of the pictures that you find in it. They're from all different eras. They're done up so that it's town, there's restaurants, there's hotels, there's churches, there's all sorts of different, and so this is, oh, I've already gone past it. So that collection is available. You can come in and look at it. You can come in and scan them. So it is available. The next thing is Frances Margaret Fox. We do have a collection of, we do not have all of her books. We have over 75% of them. I think we're missing about 10 of them. This is a picture of her with Lee Joslin, who was the family that she lived with. So in going through her stuff, this is my favorite picture. This actually, this picture is down at the Clark Historical. We actually are going to get a large print to go in the children's area. This is our favorite picture, and we really want that. We also found a lot of her stories that we have added. One of my favorite stories of her, she liked birds, and so of course she's, close to, if she liked birds. And so she has a really good story about a crow, which was really good. She also, the interesting way that things work is these pictures I found over in the back office in a box with nothing written on them. And I, of course, wanted to know the story of this little boy with a goldfinch. While we were visiting the Clark and digging through her papers, we came across the story of Lucille Goldfinch, the baby on the doorstep. And it's a story that she wrote about, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because it's really long. I'm trying to think of who it was. She had a bird that showed up on her doorstep that was just, newly hatched, no feathers, anything. And she wasn't sure what to do with it. And then someone said, oh yeah, we brought it to you because you could take care of it. And I was trying to think where it is. They were feeding it. I don't see what they were feeding it. It was an interesting thing. So they raised the baby bird, and then they decided that it needed to go to a home. And so this little guy, where is he? It was the family that lived out and managed what is now Wilderness State Park. Let me find the name. I should have marked that better. She raised it, and it lived in her house, and all the little kids in the neighborhood would come over to feed Lucille. Where is it here? So the 14th of, she also contacted, at that time it would have been U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and so they actually sent her a little band to put on the bird, so the bird was banded. It's got its number and everything in here. And then they took it, they called it the State Game Refuge, 12 miles from her village, and it was Mr. Denny. What was his first name? I don't remember his first name. It's a different name. And this was his 5-year-old son named Jerry. And so they took it out there, and that's where they released it, only it never really stayed wild. And so this is Jerry with the bird, but it took going through 2 places to put the picture with the story. So if you ever want to read it, we have the story of Lucille. And so the little goldfinch that she raised. Next, this case in the Michigan room has our local records. It has the tax rolls. It has justice dockets. It has old plat books. Down at the bottom, these are all the postcards I just showed you here. These are all the justice dockets and the tax records. Plat books over there. I'm going to read you some of them because they're absolutely fascinating. I want to tell you, if I read about your family, I'm sorry. I don't know anyone's families because I'm not from Mackinaw. And the justice dockets, there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. So, just saying that. This here is actually the voters' registration, and it was from 1912. And the thing that I thought was fascinating is we've got our Democrats and our Republicans, but we also have a list of socialists there as well. And so that was one of their choices. But we do have that. That is just, I think that was just one section. So that was a voter's registration. We have it over there. We also have when women started voting. It was a women's registration, which was kind of interesting. The next thing we have is funeral records. That's a list of some of the interesting causes of death. There was also, I think that's pretty much the list that I had. So I'm going to read you a couple of them that I thought were, when I go through these, I end up with more questions than answers after I look at them because I want to know the rest of the story because it doesn't give you much information. It's just enough to make you want to know. So this one, this person's name was James Ball. He died January 3rd, 1928. He was a carpenter. He was 92 years old in 15 days. And the cause of death they have listed is valvular heart, valvular heart, old age. I also find it fascinating that, so his funeral charges were $210. In 1928, to me, that sounds like quite a bit. So that was one that was just in general. Then I have, this was Mary McVeigh, which I'll talk about that family again. This was September 27, 1928. She was from Mackinaw City. These are all, some of them were Carp Lake as well, but most of them were Mackinaw City. So she's listed as a housewife. She was 35 years old, 1 month, 15 days. They're that precise in here. This also, I'm not reading it all, but it also has, it has their occupation, date of death, date of birth, date of the funeral, who performed the service, where they were buried, their religion. It has their name of father, name of mother, birthplace for father and mother, so it's pretty detailed. In her case, she died of diphtheria. The interesting thing for her is the cost of her funeral is $237.25, of which $200 was the casket. And it made me wonder what was so special about the casket in that case, because it just seemed, compared to all the rest of the costs. This one, the guy's name is William Peake. He was from Hebron Township. The date was July 28th, 1930. He worked at a canning factory, which I thought was interesting. He was only 16 years, 9 months, 2 days. He was hit by an automobile and it fractured his skull. His cost of burial was $25. Like I said, it just makes me wonder. I want to know where the canning thing is and if he was at work, and I want more details, and of course you don't have it unless you dig somewhere else. This one, I did not have this one written down properly. This one was Juanita May. It looks like Dormier.
Dormier.
Okay, November 30th, 1935. And died of whooping cough. And this was Mackinaw City. It has other stuff, it has family and stuff, but not a lot. This is the one that I found was horribly sad.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes. None of these have very good stories. I mean, they're pretty bad. This lady's name was Lucy Jane Smith. She died April 12, 1938, from Mackinaw City. She was a housewife, 53 years, 11 months, 11 days. She died from strangulation from an electrical cord, suicide. Then, this one has a lot for cause of death. It says she suffered from insane manic depression and had insanity for 2 years, progressively. Then it goes on to say that she had muscular atrophy from ingestion of poison from her previous suicide attempt 2 years previous. That's just like, it's quite heartbreaking. But, so there's all sorts of, from infants to the 92-year-old, they're all in there, and it's 1923 to 1957 in here. So, like I said, I read them and I end up with more questions than answers. But that's the format that they look like for the funeral, the record of funeral. And so those are a lot of the most common ones that you see a lot. So that's that book, and I spent a lot of time in that book. All of those records I found just in an envelope, so I actually had to go through and read them all as I filed them, and so that's why I was fascinated by those. Okay, so this next is the Justice Docket. I think we have 4 or 5 of them. And they go from criminal cases to just garnishment, and they're all in there. I have a hard time. I can read cursive, but they're difficult to read. I have 2 of them that I thought were kind of interesting. Well, there were more than 2, but I tried to narrow it down. So the first one that I had was there is a lot of game violations. Obviously, because people were traveling through here, there were a lot of hides and skins that were being mailed back and forth. I don't know how makes me want to know how they got them. Did they open the mail? Did they, they didn't have sniffer dogs, but how did they find out? This one took place in 1907. The guy's name was Velo Harville, and his violation was violating game laws. It was, did I tell you the date? November 14th, 1907. So this is I have transcribed it because I didn't think I could just read it easily. This is a case of one deer carcass having been seized by State Deputy Game and Fish Warden E.J. Thrasher for unlawful possession and illegal transportation, and then it has a license number by one Velo Howell of Muskegon, Michigan. The said Velo Howell was duly notified at Muskegon to appear at my office in the village of Mackinaw City at 9 o'clock in the forenoon on the 21st day of November 1907. The above said notice was sent by mail. Case was called at 9 a.m. With E.J. Thrasher representing people, and defendant was presented by his attorney, F.W. Cook of Muskegon, Michigan. To me, that was fascinating that someone could pay their attorney to come from Muskegon to Mackinaw over a deer hide in 1907. So anyways, after consulting in the case, it was agreed by both parties to adjourn case for 1 week or until the 28th of November 1907 at my office in the village of Mackinaw at 9 o'clock in the forenoon. So not only was it adjourned, but now he's coming back again. So case was called at 9 a.m. E.J. Thrasher and William Bazardette, State Deputy Game Warden, appearing for the people, and defendant appeared in person, Velo Howell. Defendant did not introduce evidence to show that the charges of the state was wrong in any way, and I did hereby order and direct that the above described deer carcass had in full possession by said Velo Howell is hereby condemned and confiscated by the state of Michigan and turned over to the state Game and Fish. To me, it was just fascinating that they took all this time over one deer carcass, and I want to know the story behind that. I mean, you know, he's from Muskegon, and he took all the time to do that. The next one is the guy's name was Bert Lancourt, and the charges were abandonment of family. Let's see, this one again, it's got a lot in here. It was December 7th, 1914, and it was brought by Rose Lancourt, which is the wife. He pled not guilty as charged in the complaint and warrant. Formal examination was set for Friday, the 11th of December, 1914, at 9 o'clock in the forenoon. Defendant was asked, what did I write? For a bond for his appearance for the above date. He was placed in charge of the office until bond was furnished or a day of trial. On Friday the 11th, the prosecuting attorney not appearing for the trial or hearing was adjourned until Tuesday the 15th of December at 9 o'clock. The prisoner not furnishing any bond, he was committed to the county jail in Sheboygan until Tuesday. Tuesday, December 15th, the prosecuting attorney appeared in the case by telephone from Sheboygan and said that the prisoner would be up at 2 p.m. and that he had pledged himself to support the child, and that if she would go with him, he would support her, but she said she would not live with him. She would rather live with a rattlesnake. With his promise that he would pay $8 every 2 weeks for the support of the child, the prosecutor ordered the case discontinued, and above said money was ordered to be paid to the court. He will stay in jail until the justice fees of $8.95 are paid. So, I just thought that one was like, you know, I want to know the rest of the story. What happens, you know? There was also there's some pretty there's a lot of drunk and disorderly. There's more prostitution than I would have expected, and a lot of the stories are really bad. One, he was hauled in for beating up his wife. She asked for 20 cents to buy the daughter a school book, and he didn't want to give 20 cents for his daughter's school book. And so there's a lot like that. You just don't know what you're going to find. It's pretty fascinating. Like you said, hopefully they're not all family members, because none of them are necessarily good in there. So that's also, we have those available that you can look at. We also have a map. We have a whole bunch of maps. We have old city maps. We have old township. They're divided up into county. We've got lots of those to look at. Let's see. Then we have the Mackinaw Women's Club has their records and histories in there, which are very fascinating. They have all sorts of other stuff as well. The most interesting thing is the Mackinaw Women's Club, the journal of when they started, that was started by Hattie Stimson. While we're not going to let you look through the journal, it is digitized, and so anybody can come read through all of this journal because it is all digital and it's available for anybody to look at. The thing that I want to know from one of you women's club is I found this page that I thought was fascinating. It says, a place where womanly thought is cherished, where high ideals are fed and nourished, where charity in all its beauty is held to be a sacred duty, where peace and harmony abound, and members meet on common ground. And that was 1914. Do you still use that? Okay, because I thought that was just really neat. But, you know, that's her handwriting, and that's 1914. And so to me, that's just fascinating. But we have all of that available for anybody to come and look through. So this is some of the things. We still have our old vertical files. We have eliminated a lot of stuff, so most of it is local. But this, on the left, we actually have a vertical file that is just people. So it's not subjects, it's all people that have lived locally, and if there's any clippings or anything to do with them, they go in there. So it's available to look at. On the right, we have our computer that's over in the Michigan room, and that's where all of our digital files are kept, and so anybody can access and come in and look. It's divided up into categories of where the pictures are from, and then we do have a file that's unidentified that people can look through, that who knows what the pictures are in there. I did see one of the Bliss Hill with no trees, which to me is fascinating because, you know. The other collection that is really fun to go through is the Mackinaw Bridge collection. Most of the collection was donated by Margaret Haleva. She was actually a secretary to one of the engineers that built and constructed. So she was there the entire time, taking notes, writing stuff up. When she died, her son wanted to donate all of her collection to the Bridge Authority. And they said, we already have it, we don't need it. So he came to us, and we took it. One of the projects we worked on is digitizing stuff with the Library of Michigan to make it accessible to other places. And we really wanted to do this collection. I'm going to go through some of these. You can watch while I'm talking. We really wanted to digitize them. And they said, well, we'll set up a meeting. We'll talk with the DOT because they're technically over the Bridge Authority, and we'll see what they say. And they said, they're not supposed to have those. They should give them back. And that was the end of the conversation. We haven't talked anymore. So we do have this collection. There's over 1,400 pictures, and it goes through all the stages of building with the descriptions of what you're actually seeing in each one. I can look through them, and they're really neat because it not only is it interesting stuff, but it's all the details too. And I'm sure that's why they don't want anyone to see them, but we have them. So there's also clippings over there. There's memorabilia from the opening of the bridge. There's a lot of the reports and the engineering that came before the bridge too, and so they're all fascinating. So that was just some of them. These are our reference books. And basically they can't be checked out, but you can come and look at them. The most fun one is these right here. These are all the journals of all the Jesuit missionaries that came over here. So they go back hundreds of years. They're all in French. However, they do have a page where it's translated. But a lot of them don't have to do with here, but there are quite a few that talk about the Straits. So. Also in here, another book. This book, I would love to know if anyone knows anything about this lady. She was a resident of Harbor Springs. I can't find out anything about her. Her book is basically almost like a diary, and she talks about all the wildlife she sees every day during the year. The interesting thing about her is, I guess at some point in the past, they wanted to put paved roads through Wilderness Park and make it more available to the public, and she was the staunch person against it. They got it, so it didn't happen. So I don't know anything more about her, and I've tried to find stuff, and this is all I can find. So I'd be fascinated to find more. But she's the reason it's still wilderness. So. And then, is it pronounced Marnie Smith? Can anyone tell me?
Marn.
Marn? Okay. So this gentleman is the one who did the Wawatam replica. So this came from him. The other thing that is interesting is in digging around, we found a manuscript of his that was just handwritten and just stuffed in some envelopes. And we transcribed it and made it so people can take it and read it. And the two things that I thought were really interesting in here. So it was all handwritten. It was very difficult. And the lady that we had transcribing it is like, I don't know what this word is. And I didn't know what the word was. And so we're fighting with trying to figure out what makes sense and what is this. He's talking about fish. And it was lawyers. We didn't know fish were lawyers. I mean, that's just not something we knew. So it took a little help to figure that one out. But that's what we thought it said, but why would you, that just didn't make any sense to us. So the other thing that was interesting is he's talking about ice fishing. And he's talking about his grandfather, says, my grandfather Oscar Smith made spears and big sleighs for fish shanties. The spears were heavy with long handles, and it was loaded with lead for weight. They had what they called spearing grounds, about a mile or a mile and a half, about 90 foot of water. The snatching grounds were 2.5 to 3 miles out on the lake, some places 190 to 200 foot of water. I've seen days out on the lake when the temp was 30 below zero, wind chill was about 50 below. And then he goes on to say, which fish were good, and he's quite detailed in it. So that was really interesting. The other thing, of course, we'll go back to birds. This one, go ahead. He had a pet crow. However, here we go. Where does the crow start? Let me see. My brother Otis, or known as Snuffy, caught a baby crow, and we tamed the darn bird, and did he ever get to be a headache around town. That bird could talk as plain as a person. In them days, all the milk was delivered by Pierce's Dairy in bottles. So the crow would go around town in the morning and tip all the empty bottles over and take the money that the people put in the bottles to pay for the milk and bring it home and hide it in the backyard. All the people in town had a special box made for the milk bottles with a door on it so that the crow couldn't get it. Nowadays, I suppose they would sue us, but I guess the people got a kick out of watching the crow and talking to it. At the time that we had the crow, my mother cooked on a kerosene oil range, and we always had a gallon barrel of oil in the back shed. Right by the side of the barrel of oil, she had her clothes baskets with all the dirty laundry. My dad always got up in the morning about 6 o'clock to go to work at the store, and we didn't get up until 9 or 10. My dad would sit out in the backyard and smoke a cigarette or two before he went to work. So often he went to work that the old crow picked up one of those cigarette butts and put it in the shed, right in one of those clothes baskets, and burned the house down and everything we had. Yeah, so there's lots of good stories. So part of what was interesting in this is he worked on the state ferries as a dockman, and then he transferred downstate. He was an equipment operator, and then he came back to the St. Ignace and worked in the state garage. So he was here, and then we ended up with. The other thing that's interesting is these pictures hang over in the Michigan room, and I did not know who the people were. And so I figured that it was the outside pictures were the couple when they were young, and the inside were the couple when they're old. Well, it turns out they were Marn's great-grandparents, I believe it was. So the gentleman is George Gardner McVeigh, which we heard that name before, and the woman is Abby Ranville McVeigh. Now, I know that's who these are, right here. I'm assuming they look identical, that this is the same guy when he's older. My assumption was that this lady was this lady when she was older. However, the name on this doesn't match, so I don't know who this lady is. It says Sarah Smith on it. There's no record of a Sarah Smith in Mackinaw, so I don't know. Written on here, it says, it's got his name, and it says grandfather, and on hers, it says great-grandmother. So I have no clue who the people are. I know they're part of that family, but I don't know the details. But so if anybody knows, I'm very curious because I want to know who they are. Like I said, I know the outside pictures because the names are on them is George McVeigh and Abby Ranville McVeigh. And they would have been Marn's great-grandparents. there's a whole, I had to do a family tree and, I've got it all written down, but I wanted to know who the people were. So you'll see those in the Michigan room. So the last story for you is we have a box of things from Elnora, I spelled her name wrong, Elnora Fay Lee, and she was from Levering. She happens to have been my great-grandmother, great-aunt. Okay, so. Great-great-aunt, okay. And so, again, she had a box of stuff, we went through it, and we found another manuscript. And so this was actually given to Judy, and she said, all the names have been changed because I don't want, if anyone knew it was about me, they wouldn't read it. She said, after I'm dead, I don't care. So it's written about Sarah, but Sarah is actually Elnora. So the two things that I found fascinating in here is first, she has an account of when Cross Village burned down. And they were talking about, they were looking out at the lighthouses on the bay. It says that night the sky was so strangely red. Then Sarah cried, Mama, look at the sunset. Mama gave a look at the sky and exclaimed, this is no sunset, it's a fire. Now fires were the dreaded enemy of the pioneer. The little stick that Mama carried to make the cattle start home came down on the cattle's back until they were running down the lane. As they reached the barnyard, Papa met her. He had quit plowing. The team was in the barn. He said, Cross Village is on fire. A neighbor who owned one of the first autos in the neighborhood was waiting for Papa. He took a load of farm men to help fight the fire, and they were gone all night. Early next morning, Papa came home, tired, dirty, and disheartened. Much of the village had burned. One building had caught on fire, then the wind blew sparks to the other rooftops. There was no water system in the village and only a few wells. There was just not water to put out the fires. Papa said he had got up on the roof of several houses, and people came with pans of milk, wet blankets, rugs, but he could not put out the many sparks that landed on the wooden shingles without more water. All but one house in that part of town burned. And so they go on to say that the Presbyterian church and all of the stores were gone. Many houses were no more, and there was just one standing on Main Street. So, and I forget what year it was that I looked it up. I think it was like, let's say 11 or 12, but I'm not sure. And then a lot of that is all from Levering, and she was on what is Valley Road now. And so again, it's fascinating stuff. And for me, I know, this is my favorite picture because this turns out to be my great-grandfather on my mom's side, my great-great-grandfather on my dad's side, my great-grandfather on my dad's side, and a great-great-uncle. And so this was in amongst there, and I had never seen this picture before digging around and finding this. And this would have been the Canby School. If you're familiar with, it will be Levering Road and Canby Road, and it's there, and that was their school. And so, again, I just find it fascinating to find these old pictures that they're just over there stored, and no one's done anything with them. And so I've just had a fun time digging stuff out and finding it and making it available so that we know that it's there and we can share it. So that's the end. Now, I'm not going to tell you, I could talk all night because there's just more and more. And so the other thing that I wanted to mention is we do have a whole bunch of binders that have obituaries. We have a whole bunch of binders that have clippings. All of these blue things are old issues of magazines that you can't get digitally. We got rid of a lot that you can get digitally now. So we've got tons of stuff over there. We have a scavenger hunt if you want to try and find things or learn where things are. It's on the back table. And the Michigan room is open so you can go and actually look. You're welcome anytime to come in and check things out. Like I said, the things in the cases you have to ask and fill out a form so you can look at them, but you're welcome to come in and explore more.
But you have seating back there that they can stay
Yes.
right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So any questions?
The books that you had, the Justice book and the funeral book,
Mhm.
who were those kept by? I mean, was it?
Well, at that time it was McKinley Township, I'm sorry, not McKinley, Mackinaw, say the wrong one. But Mackinaw, this was before Wawatam was a township, so Mackinaw encompassed the whole city.
Are the tax reports from Mackinaw Township?
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I gave them to you.
Well, they've been sitting in the cupboard for many years, and now they're cataloged so the people that know they're here, and if they're doing a research, they can come look through them. So,
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tanya. There's cookies and hot chocolate in the back if anyone would like some, and I'm sure Tanya will be happy to answer questions individually.
there's some of them just, yeah, and some of the stories are pretty awesome. Yeah.
Denny and Verna Faith. That actually, yeah,